Palpatine's yellow eyes burned into Anakin Skywalker. "I gave you a task, Lord Vader." Anakin was silent as he slowly stood up. His furrowed brow stared intently at Palpatine. The conflict returned. Next to him stood the only person he could not live without, and in front of him stood the only man who offered a way to ensure he would never have to live without her. But deep down, he knew that Palpatine was evil, that his pursuit of the power to stop his visions from coming true would ultimately cost him Padme anyway. The grin on Palpatine's face only grew the longer that Anakin was silent. It was Ahsoka that broke the silence. "You're wrong about Anakin. He won't call you master anymore." In a flash, Palpatine's grin turned into a snarl. The chain of lightning flew into Ahsoka's chest, sending her almost over the edge of the landing platform. Still, Anakin did nothing, the conflict tearing him apart. Finally, Padme stepped towards Palpatine. "Chancellor, you can end this whole conflict now. Please call the troops away from the temple and let peace begin." Palpatine glared at Padme, the hateful yellow eyes staring at the young senator. He knew that the Jedi's chosen one, his new apprentice, would never fully belong to him while she was still alive. Could this be a teaching moment, he thought to himself? "Do what must be done, Lord Vader." With the Force, Palpatine lifted Padme from the ground. "Do not hesitate." He began to crush Padme's throat. "Show no mercy." Palpatine dropped Padme to the ground. Her body lay still. At that, Anakin's blue blade sprang to life. Palpatine laughed. "At last! Now I will complete your turn to the dark side. Give in to your anger." Anakin leapt towards Sidious with his lightsaber raised and ready for a powerful swing. It was met by the hiss of Sidious's own saber igniting. Both sabers flashed against each other in a blaze of energy. The duel was fierce as Anakin channeled all of his fear and anger toward killing his new master. Now at this point, Anakin was powerful, and his potential was far greater than Sidious, but ultimately, Sidious was more powerful in this moment. But Sidious did not want to kill his new apprentice. For Anakin, this was a fight to the death. For Sidious, this is lesson number 1 for Lord Vader. Ahsoka slowly got back to her feet and was eager to join the fight. But seeing her, Anakin demanded that she take Padme away to safety instead. Reluctantly, Ahsoka complied with Anakin's request, recognizing that this was not a safe place for Padme anyway. At this very moment, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda were approaching the Jedi Temple after meeting each other following the early hours of Order 66. They had returned in hopes that they could find answers, but instead found the temple to be an active war zone. Leaving the landing platform, Sidious and Anakin continued to swing their lightsabers with speed and precision that had not been seen before. Anakin's passionate strikes were each met with precise parries. Despite the Chosen One's effort, Sidious was impenetrable. The evidence of massacre littered the halls of the Jedi Temple. Clones with lightsaber wounds, Jedi Masters with blaster burns, and even some younglings with lightsaber wounds. Obi-Wan and Yoda investigated the scene, full of sorrow. They only needed to cut their way through a few squads of clones, but it didn't make sense. Obi-Wan had fought alongside the 501st only weeks ago. What was happening? Who could have done this? Said Obi-Wan. Something told him he did not want to hear the answer. Yoda simply sighed. Obi-Wan moved to the security cams, and at this moment, Yoda cautioned him. Once again, Obi-Wan was overcome with a deep anxiety surrounding the answer to his question. Who could have done this? Obi-Wan put his hand on the terminal. Master, there's movement detected on this security cam. It's a live feed. Yoda was already moving. He had felt what Obi-Wan was about to see. The security terminal projected the hollow image of Anakin locked in combat with a hooded figure. Sidious and Anakin had made their way up to the Jedi Council chamber. It was empty. Anakin had been on his way up to deal with some younglings that were seen fleeing to the chamber, But before he had reached the chamber, Commander Appo had let him know that a speeder with Ahsoka Tano and Senator Amidala had landed, so Anakin diverted his attention. Anakin wondered if the younglings had escaped or had clones found them. It didn't matter to him anyways. Killing Sidious was all he desired now. Anakin furrowed his brow and glared at the Sith Lord. And like a flash, his eyes were yellow, matching the eyes of Darth Sidious. Sidious laughed and congratulated Anakin. Good. Let the hate flow through you. I am going to end you, Anakin yelled. Sidious laughed and appeared to look almost curious as he studied the power festering in Anakin. No, you will serve me. And Palpatine released a chain of lightning that Anakin was unable to block. As Anakin writhed in pain on the floor, Palpatine edged closer to him, every step reinforcing that he was the master and Anakin was the apprentice. Anakin! Obi-Wan and Yoda had entered the council chamber. Palpatine stopped the relentless torture of his new apprentice. Master Yoda, Master Kenobi, you survived. This was more a statement of annoyance than anything else. Obi-Wan and Yoda wasted no time leaping into action. Soon, the chamber was filled once again with the clash of lightsabers. Obi-Wan and Yoda attacked with ferocity and speed that would have slain any foe in an instant, but Sidious was no ordinary foe. He was fast enough to parry both attacks. Before long, the windows behind Yoda's seat on the council were shattered. Within seconds of beginning the fight, the trio were dangerously close to an exposed edge out to the rest of the city. Obi-Wan attempted to leap over Sidious, but the Sith Lord was ready. And with the Force, Darth Sidious froze Obi-Wan in place, then cast him like a rag doll out the window. Obi-Wan disappeared from this view as he fell from the high tower of the Jedi Council chamber. At this moment, Anakin had recovered from the lightning torture he had just endured. Seeing Obi-Wan cast over the ledge and down to the bottomless pit of Coruscant, Anakin leapt towards Sidious, who was already pressing his attack against Yoda. With the combined effort of Anakin and Yoda, Sidious soon started becoming outmatched. Anakin's raw power with Yoda's wisdom and strength left Palpatine vulnerable. Eventually, the two knocked Palpatine down. It was only hours ago that Mace Windu had beaten the Sith Lord in this very way, but Anakin had interfered with that victory. And this time it was Anakin who stared at the man who had almost stolen his soul forever. He raised his lightsaber for the killing blow. No! Yoda's words froze in Anakin's mind. The word he had been so accustomed to. Even in the moment that the prophecy of the Chosen One was about to be fulfilled, this moment, the Jedi were trying to hold him back. He knew Darth Sidious had manipulated him and tried to use him for his evil plans. He needed to die. But the Jedi were equally responsible for the state of the Republic. So Anakin made his decision. With ferocious speed, Anakin shifted his feet toward Yoda and stabbed the Jedi Master. Yoda's eyes held a look of compassion. It almost seemed that he knew what Anakin was thinking. Wasting not even a second, Anakin flipped his saber in his hand so that it pointed behind him and ran the blade through Sidious. Both masters of the Force lay dead at the Chosen One's feet. After the gruesome battle, Anakin returned to Padme's apartment, where only she was waiting. Ahsoka was not there anymore. And when Anakin asked where she had gone, Padme only responded that she did not know. With the war over, much like it ended in the original timeline, there was a vacuum of power that needed to be filled. Truthfully, I think there are many options for how this could have been addressed. Somehow Anakin could leverage his immense power to take over and essentially be the emperor who rules the galaxy with Padme at his side, but I don't think that Padme would ever go for that. Anakin in our story is free from the Jedi and the Sith. It appears to him that he's fulfilled the Chosen One prophecy, so as he looks at his wife, he begins to envision their future together, raising a family, being free to do what he wants and love who he wants. So Padme eventually convinces him to run away with her, where they go to a remote place on Naboo. There, she gives birth to Luke and Leia. The Skywalker family would grow and live a happy life on Naboo. But something would always be pulling at Anakin. The desire for power would begin to creep back in his life. He loved his family, but he also needed to prove himself. Meanwhile, the Republic would suffer a messy end to the war. With leadership on both sides of the war all dead within days, the war would come to a slow end, but ultimately the clone army would wipe out the separatists. Ill-equipped to lead the Republic without a strong leader, the Senate would eventually begin to crumble, and the Republic would once again suffer. After a couple years, Anakin would convince Padme that they needed to return, that perhaps she should lead, or even better, they should lead. And with reluctance, Padme would return to the Senate and use the same passion and leadership she did when leading her own planet through crisis, to become a leading voice in the broken government. Unknown to Padme, Anakin would also work in the shadows, influencing other senators to elect his wife as Chancellor. As Chancellor, Padme would rule well. It would take time, but eventually the Republic would get back on its feet. Luke and Leia would grow up in the spotlight. Anakin, the hero of the Clone Wars, would be a prominent figure. On the outside, everything seemed to be a happy ending, but Anakin was haunted by the dark deeds of the fateful night when he brought balance to the Force. Over the years, he would mourn his friends, Ahsoka, who had not been seen since that night, Obi-Wan, who he saw fall to the depths of Coruscant. Even some of the other Jedi were missed. Anakin struggled to find purpose, until his kids began to show sign of their own Force sensitivity. Not that that was a surprise to anyone. Finally sensing a new purpose, Anakin began to train Luke and Leia in the ways of the Force, but not the ways of the Jedi or the Sith. He would pave a new path. Anakin would not rebuild the Jedi Order as it was. Instead, he would build a new order, an order not bound by a restrictive code. It would be an order that protected people and acted when it was needed. It would not be a slave to the Republic, but it would work next to the Republic, as long as Padme was its leader. 20 years after the Jedi Order and Palpatine were wiped out, Ahsoka stood on a remote planet, following a lead that she had been working on for some time. There were rumors of a remnant Jedi group from the Old Order. She had left Coruscant all those years ago, not knowing what her fate would be, but she knew the danger that awaited if she had stayed. She knew that there were others like her, so she set out to find them, others that were hiding from a galaxy that seemed to turn on them overnight. Ahsoka, a voice called from the shadows. Obi-Wan Kenobi stepped from the shadows. Ahsoka could see the years had not been kind to her old friend. Help me rebuild the Jedi Order, Ahsoka. Alright, so let me know what you think in the comments below. I intentionally left this as a bit of a cliffhanger because I may revisit this idea of Obi-Wan and Ahsoka rebuilding the old Jedi Order and maybe even competing with Anakin's new order, but I'm going to revisit that in another series of fanfics. So what do you guys think of this what if? I think it's a fairly realistic outcome. I wanted to portray an Anakin who didn't necessarily choose the light or the dark, but rather an Anakin who eliminated both choices that were created by someone else so that he could carve his own path, which I think is what he always desired. I also think that Padme would have been a pretty great Chancellor. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Anyways, thanks for joining me on this one, and I'll see you in the next video.